Well, for more on the White House's reaction to this morning's GDP number, slower than expected second quarter growth, I do want to bring in the chairman of the President's Council of Economic Advisors. She is Christina Romer, and she joins us now from the White House. Dr. Romer, great to have you back with us. That GDP number, it reflected cooler consumer spending. What can we do to get consumer spending here?
So I think, the important thing that I see in this number is it is a solid number that we now know GDP grew 2.4% in the second quarter, driven in large part by strong investment spending, so a sign that at least firms are doing investment. Consumer spending growth was about what it was like in many other quarters, but certainly some of the actions that the president's already taken, like working so hard to get unemployment insurance passed through Congress. We think that's going to be an important thing that helps those 3 million workers that were thrown off the unemployment insurance rolls to have some more money in their pockets.
Right.
The biggest thing is getting this whole economy going.
Well, what do we do? Because there's a lot of folks out there who are critical of the administration, saying we need more targeted stimulus, specifically targeted at creating jobs. This report isn't terrible. It's hard for you guys, though, to necessarily go out and make the argument. It's not a winning political slogan, if you will, because it's not terrible growth. But how do you make that argument? Because we do potentially need more stimulus here.
What we say is exactly what's true, which is this is solid growth. For the first half of the year, we've been growing at just over 3%, but you're absolutely right. It is not strong enough, and the president feels that deeply. We know that the more rapid GDP growth is, the faster the unemployment rate comes down, and at 9.5% unemployment rate, we need to take those actions. And that's why the president is working 24/7 trying to get our small business lending bill through Congress.
What do you think is going to be the most productive for the economy? Is it tax credits? Is it more government stimulus? I mean, what do you think is going to really kind of juice the economic wheels here?
The reason we've made such a priority of the small business bill is that we know small businesses are major job creators. I think people often miss the fact that one of the things we're trying to do in that bill is give tax cuts to small businesses to help them invest and grow. We also hear from small business owners, if they could just get credit, they would expand, they would hire, and that's what this bill is trying to do. So we think it's an important measure. I want to mention aid to state and local governments. The president has made a real priority of getting some extra money to prevent teacher layoffs, and that we think would be very cost effective and save hundreds of thousands of jobs.
Now, some also say the counter argument, Christina, is that if the government's going to do a bunch of stimulus, well, then the private sector is going to say, I don't need to do anything. The government's doing it all. Is that part of your thinking in terms of how you're putting together policy to get the economy going here?
I think the public-private partnership idea is so important, and we just did a report at the Council of Economic Advisors about how so much of the Recovery Act leveraged private sector funds. And we think that about $100 billion of it went with, more than $300 billion of private sector funds. We think that is going to be something, that we think about going forward. The president has stressed the clean energy manufacturing tax credit. That's one of those classic private partnerships.
Just got a few seconds here, Dr. Romer. Fed's Bullard making some comments about how we're closer to Japan than we ever were. I'm curious what you folks are saying about that in the White House.
Oh, I'm sorry. The president's helicopter just came. No, absolutely. What we have always said is that, when unemployment rate is high, that tends to put downward pressure on the inflation rate. And so the answer to any concerns about, inflation getting too low is get this economic growth faster. And so all of the measures that we've been talking about are aimed exactly at doing that.
All right. Dr. Romer, thank you so much. Our thanks to the chairman of the President's Council of Economic Advisors, Christina Romer.